Welcome to A Parent's Guide to Child Development. I'm your host, Anna-Marie Von Furley from Fledgling's Flight. Each podcast, we strive to give parents the tools they need to help their child thrive through conversations with experts in child development and psychology, where you can learn about the most important information that you didn't know existed. So much of how children learn doesn't happen through lessons. It happens through connection. Everyday moments like meals, getting dressed, bath time, and errands are full of opportunities for communication and development. Today, I'm joined by Sholeh Shahinfar, a speech-language pathologist and founder of Valued Voices. Sholeh is a neurodiversity-affirming, family-centered approach, helping children build confidence and express their authentic voices through meaningful connection. Today, we'll explore how everyday routines become powerful opportunities for learning without pressure, perfection, or flashcards. Welcome, Sholeh. I'm so excited to talk to you today about this important topic.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and very excited to talk about this important topic.
Yay! All right, well, let's get started. When parents think about helping their child communicate, they often think they need to sit down and teach. What do you wish they knew about everyday moments instead?
This is such an important question and one of my favorites. I really would love parents and caregivers to know that communication doesn't have to be a teachable task to add to your to-do list, that truly these opportunities are happening in your everyday environment and daily routines, and always remembering that connection is key.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Why are daily routines like meals, bath time, or errands such powerful learning opportunities for children?
These are such powerful moments because in these everyday routines, we really want to be present and engaged with our kids. And these everyday routines are predictable. They're happening all the time. They're usually happening in the same way. So that really helps support kids kind of knowing what's coming up, what's happening. And for parents, it's a great moment to model language. And it's usually the same language all the time around those routines. So with getting dressed, you're kind of labeling the same clothing items. You're in mealtime, you're labeling foods, you're labeling similar actions like eating, drinking, mixing. And so this is really good for kids because repetition is key. And it's, again, these everyday routines are fun, functional, meaningful opportunities. So it makes it just click more and connect more for the kids.
Fabulous. What are some common missed opportunities for communication that you see in families?
So I think rushing and not slowing down is one of the biggest things. We're in a society that is so fast paced and we have so much to do. So often, parents are getting their kids ready to go to school. They're getting ready to go to work. They're rushing out of the house. And so those are all moments that are missed opportunities for communication. So I think something really important is absolutely slowing down, taking the time to really see how all these moments, again, are moments for connection and engagement with your kids. I also think another one is overcorrection. I think a lot of times we want to correct our kids instead of just embracing what they're doing and how they are communicating. So, if a child is looking at something that they want and we are rushing, we may be missing that they're actually looking at the thing that they want. And so that's, again, a missed moment of communication, a missed moment of connection. Also, if we do catch that moment where they're looking, we kind of want them to do it the way we want them to do it. So we want them to say the word, we want them to point to the thing. And so we're not often honoring that the child is communicating in the way that they want to in that moment. I do think, communication comes in so many different forms. And of course, we always want to model for our kids. If they're looking at something, we definitely want to acknowledge that, accept that, celebrate that, and validate that, while also modeling, the next part of the growth for them. So maybe modeling the word, pointing to it, but we never want to expect that they're giving the response that we want them to give, but just honoring where they're at.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of newer parents don't quite realize is that for at least the first 10 months or more, that your child has no language, no words to communicate anything. So everything has to be they have to find a way to communicate their needs, right? So through making sounds and crying, looking at things, turning their head away. And I think a lot of parents are don't catch those communication opportunities because they don't realize that they should be looking for them.
Exactly, exactly. And I think one of the huge things with that is we are very are when we think communication, we often think like speaking. We think
Yeah.
communication is through words. And so I think especially as a first-time parent, you're just kind of waiting for that sound, that that the mama, the dada, you're waiting for that moment. But like you said before that, there's so much communication happening. There's communication through eye contact, through crying, through screaming, through laughing. So there's so many different forms of communication that I don't think we talk about enough. And so then those go as missed opportunities where a child might be communicating, but we're not, and it's not that we're doing it on purpose, of course, but we're just not tapped into, oh, that could have been communication. And then especially when we're rushing or on our phones or things like that, then we're missing those moments that are actually happening. So I think it's two part. It's slowing down, that it's also being very aware of the multiple ways that communication can happen, not just through speaking.
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about as an example, just so that people really get a real world uh, uh, example of what this might look like. So if like a child comes over and brings you a ball, so maybe they want you to throw it or roll it, or maybe they want you to name it. It's a ball. Maybe they want to know what it does. Maybe they want you to bounce it. Maybe they want the name of the color. Like you don't know, and so things that you could do is like, oh, you brought me a ball. This is a ball. The ball bounces. Maybe I don't, you can communicate with them like what you think their intention might be, and then look for a response of like how they might react. Like, oh, maybe they just wanted to, maybe they just wanted to give you a ball. I don't know. Like they don't, it's up to you to sort of be that detective, right? To sort of figure
Yeah.
out what they're trying to communicate.
Yes, I love that you said that. I love that you use the word detective because that's what we're all about, like doing that detective work. And we're not always going to be right. Of course, we don't always know what the child is communicating to us or what they want. But exactly like you said, and I love that example. It's spot on. If they bring you something, acknowledge that they brought you something, and then kind of guess what they are trying to communicate and model that, expand on it and narrate. So exactly like you said, they bring you a ball and like, yeah, you brought me the ball. Let's bounce it. Let's throw it. Kick ball, bounce ball, red ball. And you kind of know that moment when you say the thing that they wanted you to, what they wanted to communicate, because they'll look at you and they'll look and they'll smile and they'll be so excited. So then it's like, okay, that was it. That's what they were trying to communicate. And again, those moments for me, I think are such deep, beautiful moments of connection where you're just engaged with your child, you're present, you're connecting with them. And then you have that moment where it's like, yes. That was such a great example. And thank you for bringing it up.
Yay. How can parents release the pressure to teach, instead focus on connecting?
So, yes, it's all about connecting. I think we need to let go of perfection. We need to let go of like compliance and correction and focus more on that connection. So I think instead of, like drilling vocabulary, like doing flashcards, sitting down at a table, I think playing is the best way. Again, these natural moments that are happening when you're giving your child a bath, when you're sitting down at mealtime, when you're playing, those are the moments that stick most with children because that's how they're learning. They're learning through play, they're learning through connection. So I definitely think shifting our mindset a little bit. I am huge on not abiding by milestones. I think milestones are a great guide for us as professionals and for parents to help support kids. But I think that every child is so uniquely beautiful and they develop at their own stage. And so I think that when we hold on to they haven't met this milestone, it creates a lot of discomfort within us. And then the child picks up on that discomfort. And so then everything kind of becomes like we're testing them. We're trying to see if they got to this milestone. So I think dropping all of that. Again, milestones are a great guide for us on like what a child can be doing, but it shouldn't be something that we're focused on all the time. So shifting that mindset from like these milestones, this checklist, to just honoring our children where they're at and meeting them there, I think is so important.
For parents who worry that they're not doing enough, what would you want them to hear?
You absolutely are enough, is what I. You are enough. You are doing enough. Your love, your presence, your engagement with your kid is absolutely enough. I often think parents always think they need to be doing something extra. And I love that. I love that because, of course, you want to do everything and anything you can for your children. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things. I also want parents to know that they're already doing everything that they should be doing. It's just that's why I'm so happy to be here. It's just helping you shift your mindset into thinking, how can I make this an opportunity? I think getting in the car to take your kid to school, most times people aren't thinking this is a great opportunity for language, or being in the grocery store, or taking your dog for a walk. I don't think we think of those as moments for language opportunities and language modeling. And so I think we need to do something extra. We need to sit down at the table. We need to have this workbook. We need to have these flashcards. And that's what I want parents to know. You already are doing enough by being with your child on the floor, playing with the cars and the trains. You already are doing enough taking your child on a walk with the dog to the grocery store. Those are all moments where you can really be modeling language and creating an opportunity. So you are enough and you are doing enough and you don't need to do anything extra.
I mean, just as simple like you were talking about walking the dog and just sort of narrating what you see. So, like, oh, there's a dog. The dog is brown. Look at the small dog. There's a big dog over there. Oh, do you see the squirrel? Oh, that wind feels very good, or it feels very hot today. And so, just sort of saying what you observe introduces those words to your child within the context, as opposed to in a book, which is also fine, right? There's the duck in the book and there's the sun in the book. And so that's another way of doing, introducing them to those words, but you could just do it by narrating what you're already doing, right?
And that's the two biggest tips that we always give parents. Narrate everything you're doing and narrate everything your child is doing as if you are talking for them, because that is how they're learning language in the most beneficial, most functional way. Reading books is great. Reading books is a great way. Showing them pictures is great, but really that meaning gets connected when it's in those everyday activities that are fun and functional. So showing a picture of a dog and saying, it's a dog, dog says woof, woof, great. But it connects more when you're walking the dog and you're like, the dog is running, let's go. It's a dog, dog says woof, woof. Those are so much more meaningful and functional opportunities. And I think celebrating, all of it, because the small things, well, I consider everything big, but the small wins, like if a child points to the dog when the mom says it's a dog and the child points, or the child says woof woof or says dog, that is all the small wins that lead to those big moments. So I think yes, narrate everything you're doing, narrate what your child's doing, and celebrate it all.
But one of the things that I felt weird, one of the things. So my husband has taken to talking to himself, and it's a he didn't used to do that, but lately I've noticed like he's walking like, who are you talking to? But I remember, so I have a 16-year-old now, but when he was younger and getting that advice about narrating your day just felt so uncomfortable. of that sort of just talking to no one, like being a YouTuber and just be like, I'm talking to a screen. I guess now because so many people do like social media or whatever, and they might be doing posts where they're just talking to a screen. Like for me, it felt very weird and unnatural. Be like, I'm going into the kitchen, I'm grabbing a bowl, and now I'm going to put these eggs. I'm cracking the eggs in a bowl, and these are all important things to do, but it felt really weird. It felt weird. So, um, any advice you want to give to parents who might find it uncomfortable to have that narration going on?
Yeah, yeah. So it does. It feels interesting. It feels weird. It might not always feel natural. But so there, without getting too much into this, there are two different ways that kids process language. Some are kind of what we call word babies that are more analytic language processors that develop. They learn by one word at a time, and then they build on those words to make phrases, sentences, conversation. And so for those, let me talk about the other one first. The other one is Gestalt language processors, and that is when the children are learning language in chunks first, and then you break down those chunks into single units of language to then form self-generated language. With both, with Gestalt language processors, you're giving them, you're modeling language and more grammatically correct sentences. You're using kind of that more of that narration where you're describing a lot what you're doing, what they're doing. For the analytic language processors, it's more what we kind of term baby talk. You're like blue ball, kick ball, throw, push. And that I know is extremely hard for parents because they're like, I cannot baby talk all day, every day. And I get it. As a speech language pathologist in our sessions, I can't do it in a whole day worth of sessions. So, and the thing is, you should be exposing your child to grammatically correct sentences. So I would do a mix of both, and don't always feel like you need to baby talk because again, children should be hearing full sentences too. Um, if even narrating everything you're doing is like, oh my gosh, this feels so unnatural, I would encourage you to pick like one or two daily routines. And actually, that's kind of the first homework I give parents often is pick one routine and do that for the week. Don't do it for every single routine or every single moment because you also don't want it to feel not authentic. You don't want to like again lose that connection with your child and put all this pressure on yourself to talk a certain way. So pick one routine and just narrate that routine for the whole week. And that is doing so much for your child more than you know, because even if they're not imitating it, they are absorbing it and they're learning so much vocabulary. They're learning so much about sentence structure. They're learning so much about describing things, the world around them. So it's doing a lot. If you just want to pick one routine, that is fine. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It made me think about like the opportunity of diaper changing, narrating that because for some children who are neurodiverse that you may not even know that they're neurodiverse yet, knowing what's coming next that is very calming for them and they can get very dysregulated when tasks change, right? So like listen, it looks like you've got a messy diaper. We're going to go into your bedroom. We're going to go to the changing table. I'm putting on the changing table. I'm opening up your diaper. Now I'm going to, wipe and then name body parts. So they learn names of body, but also they have that sensory experience as well that they get through your touch and your handling. But then if that is your one of the tasks that you're narrating for the day, then over time when their memory gets stronger, then when you say it's time to change the diaper, they will be familiar with those steps, know that it's not something scary or painful or whatever, that having that is like uh knowing what's happening next is very helpful to them. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah, no, that's very spot on. It helps with expecting what's happening. And again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The predictability is so great for kids because it helps them know what's happening next. It's teaching them this concept of like sequence. It's really helping, especially for neurodivergent children, that kind of routine is it's safety for them. It helps keep them regulated. So I think it's really beneficial to kind of talk about what you're doing for children, and what's coming up and what's happening. I think it's really something important to do for all of our children. So yeah, that's a great point. And same like with, bath time. When we're giving children a bath, we're most often parents are engaging with their kids. We're not silently giving, we're not silently giving them a bath and then that's it. So even things like splash, or you touch the water and you're like, ouch, hot, 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 or splash, 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 doing things like that is so, so beneficial. So we don't have to always consider it as like, I need to narrate everything. Just even doing things like that, which again, parents are already doing. I know that most parents are doing it, is perfect. So just continue to do that and expand on it, I would say.
Yeah, amazing. How can parents follow their child's lead during routines without turning everything into a lesson?
Observe what your child is doing, sit back, get on their level. So get on the floor with them, observe what they're doing, wait, and then model. Everything is not a lesson, and we don't want children to feel that way when they're put in these situations where they think we're testing them and they're like kind of under this microscope. Um, we even feel that way as adults, like, if something like that is happening in our jobs or our relationships where we feel that it's uncomfortable. So we want children, again, their best way that they're learning is through play. So just observe how they're playing and let your child guide you to what they're interested in, guide you to what they want to be doing. They will show you. They are amazing guides, our children. So they will show you what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So I would just say follow their lead. A lot of what we do at Valued Voices is, I would say, all of what we do is child led therapy. And I think that often that that can look like there is no structure, because you're just following the child, you're doing what they want to do. But in fact, there's a lot of structure to child-led therapy. It's just not the structure we think of, like sitting down at a table and I've planned out all the activities. I'm really letting the child guide me, but I'm also providing that structure with modeling them and creating maybe a play idea or expanding off their play idea. So observe your child, do what they want to do, and follow their lead. And always wait. If you are modeling language, again, your child may not imitate you right away. It may take a couple turns to imitate you. One of the examples I like to bring up is like if you're doing snack time, usually, or you're playing with cars or, whatever item that you have, I would make, kind of create the opportunity where if you're giving your child a banana, you cut that banana into like 15 different, like small little slices, and you try to get your child to point to the banana. You try to get your child to say, banana, banana, I want banana, whatever it is. And then you provide that model. And if your child does it, great. If they don't, give them the banana. Then you have 14 other slices of banana to keep modeling that. So same with cars. If you're playing with cars, keep the cars in a box, put the box on your lap, take out one car, model the words, see if model beep beep, model anything, and model the sign, see if they'll do it. If not, give them the car. Then you have all these other cars, so more opportunities to do it. That I know requires a lot of patience. And sometimes it's like, well, the child just wants to play. I just need to get the snack time over with. But trust me, putting in the time to create those opportunities is very, very impactful and very important.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to let parents know that how the child's brain functions at this age. Like they have a very short attention span, and I don't think parents really realize how short it is when they are under 3 years old. It's less than 3 minutes, right? So as a toy store owner, what I get from parents is like, oh, I got my kid, they played for it for like 3 minutes and then they moved on. I'm like, that's actually developmentally normal. That's not that like that's exactly what they should be doing. They're not going to sit down and do anything for 30 minutes because they don't have the capacity to do that. And
Yeah.
the other thing that they should know is that their short-term memory is not great. So that's why repetition, as you've been saying, why repetition is so important. They're not going to learn it the first or second time that you say it. It's over and over and over the course of time. That's what's going to build those neural connections in their brain.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think also when you have this child-led approach where again, we're buying the toy, right? Like as the parents, we're buying the toy. As the teacher, we're bringing in the toy. So we do have a say in what's happening because we're like, okay, this is the toy that I think my child will like. But then you have a bunch of toys. Let your child gravitate to the ones that they want to, because that also shows that their preference matters, their choices matter. And I think that confidence building in a child so early on is so important for development, for confidence, for emotional regulation, for peer relationships. So I think it's just setting a good tone that their choices and their preferences matter and that we hear them and acknowledge them.
Yeah. So what that might look like for parents is that your kid goes to something, you engage with them while they're doing the same playing with cars, and then after 3 minutes or so, they turn away and they go to something else. And now they go to the where all the toys are and they're pulling something else out. Maybe they find a tambourine and they start beating on a tambourine for a little while, and then they switch. Just know that that's normal.
Yes. That
That's
is normal. That is completely normal. It's yes, very normal. And just follow your child. I know when I first started, like in this work of speech language therapy, I would be like, but that's not how we play with the toy. It's like that's not how we play with it. We play with it this way. And now I'm like I encourage children to play with it the way that they want to play with it. Like there's that ball drop toy that like has the hammer that I remember one kid didn't want to use the hammer and was doing it with his foot. And I was like, no, we have to use the hammer. And I was like, you know what? He wants to use his foot. This is like how he's like, it's self expressing right now. This is fun for him. Because as soon as I was like, well, we have to use the hammer, he didn't want to play with it anymore. But when I was like, okay, let's do it with our foot. What body parts should we use next? Should we do it with our chin? It made it fun for him. And then actually his attention span increased. He was able to be on that activity for longer because we were playing it with it the way that was fun for him. So I think that's important too. Sometimes, yeah, it's very natural for kids to have short attention spans, but we also need to look at like, why are they having, is it because we're like, play with it this way, read the book this way. Oh, we can't turn the pages all the way to the end. We're still at the beginning, So sometimes we need to note that too, that if a child is moving on to the next thing, is it because we're enforcing them to do it the way we want them to do it? But if we actually went with the way they did it, they might actually stay with that activity for 20 minutes, which is great.
Yeah. And what you're talking about there is intrinsic motivation. So doing something because you want to do it, or your child doing something because they're enjoying it, and then they want to stick with it. Yeah. Which is
Yes,
the best way for them to learn because they're wanting to do it, right? So
yes, the best.
learning without knowing that they're learning, right?
Exactly. That's the trick.
How does neurodiversity affirming approach change the way we think about communication development?
So it's such an important question. I think we need to shift the focus from fixing to just honoring that everything again is a valid form of communication and each child communicates in their own unique way. We talked about this earlier that all forms of communication, eye gaze, pointing, making a sound, a turning away from something, vocalizations, using a device, body movements, signs, gestures, all of that is communication. So I think when we shift from fixing and wanting communication to be a certain way and that something needs to be fixed and honoring all forms of communication is where truly the magic happens.
Amazing. What does it mean to honor a child's authentic voice, especially when it doesn't look typical?
So, yeah, this is all of these questions are just amazing. It's so important. I think we see a lot in autistic children, echolalia and scripting. And unfortunately, in the past, it's something that should be extinguished or ignored, which is absolutely devastating that that was ever the philosophy. Because, when a child is communicating by scripting, by using a line from their favorite movie or the TV show or a song, they are communicating something. And I think it's very, very important to acknowledge that that is their authentic communication right now, that their authentic communication is scripting. And so we need to provide, again, do that detective work to see what it actually means. And again, that is, like you beautifully said earlier, modeling what we think they want to say. And then once we land, like children will tell us, like, yep, that's what I was trying to communicate, and then model that language for them. So, if a child is, I can actually give you a real life example, which is really, really cool. We had a child that we were seeing who's a Gestalt language processor. So he used a lot of scripts, he used a lot of echolalia to communicate. And when we first started working with him, he would come in and at times in the sessions would say the babies on the bus go wah wah wah, and we're like, oh, he wants to listen to Wheels on the Bus, so we'd play Wheels on the Bus, but he would continue to say it and he didn't seem happy about it when he was saying it. There was kind of like this an emotion tied to it. So we started tracking when he was saying it, what emotion he had. And we actually saw a pattern that every time he would say, the babies on the bus go wah, 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 was when we were doing an activity that might have been too hard for him, or that he needed a break, or that he didn't like the activity. And so his script was tied to an emotion which had a very, very significant meaning. It was an emotion of, I don't like this, I don't want this, I'm uncomfortable, this is too hard, I need a break. And we, by modeling that, by figuring that out and doing that detective work, and then providing him the language model to use, we were honoring his communication. We didn't just ignore it. Like, he just wants to listen to Wheels on the Bus again. We really wanted to figure out what he wanted. So I think that's really, really important, like honoring all forms of communication and valuing how children express themselves, and really meeting them again where they're at and doing that detective work.
That's a great, great example. What is echolalia for those people who don't know what it is?
Great question. So echolalia, we have delayed and immediate echolalia. It's repeating what you hear other people say in movies, TV shows. Again, so an example of immediate echolalia is if I say to a child, "Are you hungry?" and they say, "Are you hungry?" or just "You hungry?" Again, echolalia is serving a function too. Delayed echolalia would be like if at school they heard. You can't do that, or it's time to clean up now. And then at home, they later repeat, it's time to clean up now, or you can't do that. And it, again, that is also serving a communicative function. It is serving either affirming what you're saying. So in that example of like, are you hungry? And the child says, you hungry? Like with the same intonational pattern, they could be affirming that, yes, I'm hungry. Again, right now, maybe they don't have the language to say, yes, I'm hungry, or yes, I want, a pizza. But through their own authentic communication, they are serving a communicative intent and a purpose. And so I think it is absolutely always important to do the work to figure out what that is. Are they protesting? Are they requesting? Are they trying to share an idea with you? Are they describing something? What is their communicative intent? And not just taking it so literal, or like, oh, thinking that it's literal, like they want to hear that song, or oh, they're just repeating the end of my question. It's always, always, always serving a purpose and a function.
And do you think that this happens because they're always hearing the question and not having the response modeled to them?
Yeah.
So if they say, "Are you hungry?" You're never saying, yes, I'm hungry. So they're not hearing the answer. So they're just repeating what they've just heard. I'm guessing. I don't actually know.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, like again, for Gestalt language processors, we encourage parents, especially in the early stages, to avoid asking questions because the children do demonstrate echolalia. Again, that repetition of what they're hearing. So when you're asking a question, they're going to probably imitate the question or part of the question. So instead, that's again where the modeling is key. So if you know your child is hungry, something like, let's get a snack, or it's time to eat, or the pizza's so yummy, like more language like that, so that then that's what they're using. Again, that's what they're hearing. So if instead of saying like, are you hungry or do you want a snack, you say, let's get a snack. And then they say, let's get a snack. And that's again more functional because they're telling you that that's what they want versus imitating the question to affirm that that's what they want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. How does emotional safety and connection influence a child's ability to communicate?
Well, I feel like when a child feels safe, they feel more connected and then they feel more honored and respected to actually communicate in their authentic way. So they, again, take more risks to communicate. They take more risks to engage. I think connection builds trust and connection builds safety, which is the foundation for growth. So I think that when we give our kids that safe space of however you communicate is honored. We're not going to ignore any form of your communication. We're going to acknowledge it all and we're going to support you to grow. I think that that is so transformative for our kids. So if a child smiles at us or gives us a gesture through like a body movement and we honor that and we acknowledge it, they feel safe and they feel secure.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, I think what I was trying to get to in that question is if the child feels they're always being, like you were saying, overcorrected, or there's some kind of punishment that happens if they're not naming things or they're not saying things in a certain way, then they might not, then they're afraid of participating, right? Because they don't want the punishment. And even though I'm going to give an example, a real world example that I noticed over Halloween this year, we get lots of trick-or-treaters in our neighborhood. And this child who's probably, I want to say maybe 9 or 10, came with his dad, who I think was probably, who's definitely neurodiverse, maybe autistic. And the dad was saying, say trick or treat, say trick or treat, say trick or treat. And the kid was just like frozen. And, so the dad wasn't going to let him get the candy until he said the words. But, I could see the kid was really struggling. And so it was kind of a heartbreaking for me to sort of witness that, because that happened at every door. That happened at every door, and the kids' anxiety was just amplified. So then now trick or treating is not a fun thing because now it's an anxiety thing, because I can't do the thing, and more than my dad is pressuring me to do this in front of strangers who are looking at my face. Well, and so I like looked away, and eventually just gave it to him. It's like, you did a great job, and just gave him the candy without having to have him perform for me. So I think that's what I was trying to get to in that question.
Yeah, and I think so much of that's a such a good example because it happens so often. And I think just taking it apart a little bit, like if we are constantly told, and just the humans, all of us as humans, if we're constantly being told what we're not doing right or how to do something, it's exhausting. It's like, well, nothing that I'm doing is good enough. I'm trying everything I can. If a child could say trick or treat, they would say it.
Yeah.
They can't, it's especially with autistic children, there's such a I think this is so much more about like education to our society that we often are like, oh, because they're not saying it, we assume intelligence, um we assume so many things because a child is not speaking or saying something, which is far from the truth. There are so many autistic individuals are highly compassionate, highly intelligent, and so when we're asking them to do something with their body or their mouth, there's apraxia of the oral apraxia, there's body apraxia. So that's when there's just like a brain body disconnect or a brain muscle mouth oral motor disconnect. And so when we're constantly being like, say this, say this, say this, they can't say it in that moment. And so it's a lot of pressure. And I think exactly like you said, it creates this anxiety where now the experience is like, well, next year I'm not going to want to go trick-or-treating at all. And I think, again, it's all about education to our community, to our society, to adults, to professionals. This parent did nothing wrong by saying, say trick or treat, say trick or treat. I mean, they did what they thought they had to do. But I think if we had more education that like make a board for him that simply says trick or treat so he could just point to the trick or treat or look at the trick or treat, and then the person that's giving the candy knows that, okay, I'm going to accept that. But I think that this is all unfortunately so foreign in our society for so many, that we need to, I do definitely more in providing this education. And again, it's not like anyone's doing this at a fault on purpose. It's just the knowledge that we need to keep spreading.
Yeah, and I think in a way the parent was embarrassed that their child wasn't saying it, and the way they were trying to socialize them, say this is how we do this. Trick or treat, you go and you say trick or treat and you get the candy, and that's is how it's done. So also probably didn't feel like they were being trying to be mean about it. They just thought that that's what they needed to do to teach the
Yeah.
kid this is how Halloween, this is the ritual of Halloween as you say this. But I just felt like that pressuring that child over and over and over again. It was like, oh, just let it
Yeah.
go, man. It's not that
Thank
important.
Thank you for recognizing that. I hope that happens at every single house. And it's tough because we do have all these like rules, but for me, really, and I truly believe this with neurodiversity affirming care too, it's like we don't all look the same. We don't all want to look the same. Why would we want to fit into like a box? Eye contact to me. I remember in school, I kind of pushed the boundaries a little bit because and this was like several years ago, that we had to write a goal for eye contact, and I kind of like pushed it at that time. I was like, why do we have to write a goal for eye contact? I don't give eye contact 80% of the time. Why am I expecting someone else to give it, eye contact? And so I think it's just, again, this reframe that, and this kind of gets into so many different topics, but with autistic kids too, and many neurodivergent individuals, these rules that we impose on them, that like you have to look at someone, you have to turn your body, we have to have quiet hands, we need to have the it's can can you imagine how much they're masking every single day by following these rules? And then when they come home in this safe space, we're like, oh my gosh, why does my child look so dysregulated? Why are they feeling like this? It's because they're masking their whole day at school to follow these rules that make no sense to me, in my opinion. And then they're having masking burnout, which is an actual thing, like having masking burnout where you're just like, I can't take this anymore. And it's just like, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to make children follow these rules that really don't serve a purpose anyway. So I know that kind of deviated a little bit from your
No,
question,
and
but
I'm so glad you brought that up because I would love for parents to learn about what masking is. Like for me, I just heard about it recently, and I was like, "Oh my God, that makes total sense." But it was a concept I hadn't heard of, and I didn't have a word for it, and it made sense. So I'd love for you to sort of like, what is masking, and what does that look like?
yeah, so some examples of masking I can provide are like forcing eye contact. So eye contact is actually very, very hard for neurodivergent individuals. And it sometimes actually is like painful to physically focus on something for that sustained period of time. And so when we are like, you have to look at us, and there's a goal for eye contact, and we're like, look at the person who you're talking to, make sure you look at them in the eyes and say, okay, they're masking what they actually really want to do, which is what's regulating them, which is to not look at the person. Like that's actually feels more comfortable for them. But our, societal rules are you need to look at someone when you're speaking to them. That's the appropriate thing to do. So then they're forcing themselves to do something that's unnatural for them, which is masking. Like you're not doing what you really want to do. You're not doing what, and when we are doing that, it causes dysregulation in the body when we are doing things like that. A child or an adult that stims, that is, hand flapping. Stimming serves a purpose. Stimming is self-regulating them. It can be a communication for excitement. It could be communicating that they're not comfortable in a situation. So when we try to eliminate stimming and hand flapping, it's like atrocious. That we should not be doing that, because again, when we're saying like quiet hands, put your hands down, and a child needs to stim to communicate something or to self-regulate, and we're taking that away from them, and they're sitting in class the whole day at school not hand flapping or being told to put their hands down, we're taking away something that's helping them. It's like taking away
Yeah.
glasses from someone that needs to wear glasses. Like, you know what I mean? We're taking away something that's helping them, that's supporting them. And so I think when children are doing what we want them to do and masking their own needs to fit into these appropriate rules, that is masking, and that is extremely, extremely difficult, and what we should not be doing at all.
Thank you for that. I think that's a really important thing. So if parents remember just one thing from this episode, what would you want it to be?
Connection over correction, connection over compliance, just connection is my biggest thing. Connect with your kids. Remember that your relationship with your child is the number one most powerful tool that you have. And in that connection, you will see so many beautiful things blossom.
Amazing. What's one small shift families can make today to create more communication rich moments?
Again, slow down, slow down, stay present, and shift again your mindset that you don't need to be doing anything extra. You're already doing everything. You just need to shift your language, and you need to shift to think that, okay, this is an actual opportunity that's happening in our everyday life with my child. And those are the keys to growth and success.
Fantastic. Where can families learn more about your work and valued voices?
Yes, great question. So on my website, it's www.valuedvoices.com, valued with a D. And we also have an Instagram page, Valued Voices. On our website, we have a ton of resources for parents. So guidebooks, we have a neurodiversity-affirming guidebook that talks all about masking, accommodations at school, sensory supports. So you can take a look at that. If you ever need services with us, we do provide speech and occupational therapy, as well as IEP supports for those in the States that have children in the public school system receiving an IEP. So we're here to support you. We offer virtual therapy, parent coaching. So whatever you need, we are here for you.
Wonderful. I could talk to you all day.
It's so good.
Fantastic. Communication doesn't need to be taught in formal lessons. It grows through connection in everyday moments, from meals and routines to quiet transitions. Children learn by communicating with adults who care for them. As Sholeh shared, honoring a child's authentic voice and following their lead creates safety and confidence communication that needs to flourish. The most powerful learning often happens right in the middle of real life. Thanks for tuning into A Parent's Guide to Child Development, where we decode milestones, demystify meltdowns, and occasionally question whether goldfish crackers count as a food group. Spoiler, they do. Make sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an expert tip, breakthrough strategy, or aha moment that can make a big difference in your child's development. It's cheaper than therapy and less messy than glitter slime. We'll be back soon with more expert advice, real talk, and zero judgment. Until then, keep calm and try not to step on any Legos.